And welcome into Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles and of Pressbox, PressBoxOnline.com. And with me tonight, as always, is the old left-hander, Ross Grimsley. Ross, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, buddy. How you doing?
All right. We got a little bit of a younger guy with us tonight, and he's going to join us in about 45 seconds. He's smiling right now, but we're going to grill him with some tough questions. That is former Major League pitcher Jim Gott. And we're going to talk to him about his special connection, Cal Ripken, and many, many other topics over the next 25, 30 minutes. But first, I got to tell you about the Costas Inn. That's right. Everybody in Baltimore knows that they are the preeminent place to go for your steamed crabs, your crab cakes, crab soup, and a whole host of specials throughout the week, Monday through Friday. They've got great steaks there, great desserts, really a wonderful place. If you're still not comfortable going inside and sitting indoors, Costas Inn has really stepped up their curbside business and the way they handle it. You can order your food online at CostasInn.com. That's COSTASIN.com. And you can pay for your food online. And then when you pick it up, you don't even have to get out of your car. They'll bring it out to you. And everything is packed really, really well. So your grandmother's crab soup is not going to spill over your steak. They pack it unmistakably the Costas Inn way. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard, 410-477-1975. And again, the website, CostasInn.com. Joining us right now is somebody I've had the chance to talk to on a couple occasions. He is former big league pitcher Jim Gott. And Jim, welcome to the show, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Great to see you, Stan and Ross.
So I hit you right off the bat when you showed up on the Zoom. I said, "Do you remember this guy?" And you kind of do remember Ross Grimsley.
Of course I do, and I hate to tell him that. Yes, I'm 10 years younger, and so he was the prime of his career during my my heyday in high school, when I was really starting to think that I might have a career, at least going to college. But it was what I really wanted to do. So obviously I watching the Saturday game of the week with Joe Garagiola and the Monday night games of the week. And I always used to remember, I remember Ross when he was with the Big Red Machine.
Yeah,
I'd love, those stories must be incredible, to be so young and to be with such an incredible group of guys. Yeah. But then going up to Montreal was one of my favorite places to go. And I liked the Expos, even though I grew up out here in Dodgerland. We were very happy that Rick Monday hit that home run that allowed us to be able to get into the playoffs that one year. But we loved Montreal, and I used to love what was going up there. So I remember Ross very fondly. Great career.
Hey, Ross is also a very special person too. He really is. Jim, I had you on a radio show I did for a few years here on PressBoxOnline.com called The Bat Around, and we did it around one of the years of the anniversary of Cal Ripken breaking Lou Gehrig's streak. You have a very special connection with it. I know about it, but clue our viewers in on it, because it's really an incredible story.
So I was just a very obscure Rule 5 drafted player with the Toronto Blue Jays in 1982. With Bobby Cox, and I got an opportunity of getting into their 5-man rotation. One of my first starts, because of the bad weather in April, one of my first starts was late May, and it just so happened to be around the time that the Indianapolis 500 was, and a kid that I grew up with, Michael Chandler, whose family owned the LA Times, and Michael Chandler had his rookie debut he was a Formula One car driver, and he had his rookie year with the Indianapolis 500 that same weekend. That I a very significant start. And for me, it was the start not only against the Orioles, but it was against Jim Palmer. And to be pitching against somebody with that kind of standard, to be like as if I was pitching against Ross Grimsley. It'd be that important to get a chance to pitch in a game like that. And
I think more people would have bet on you, now that you can bet on games legally. More people would have bet on you against Grimsley than Palmer, though.
Good chance.
I don't know about that. Ross had incredible years. But so it just so happened, of course I didn't know it, but there was a young guy that was playing in that game, and that was Cal Ripken Jr. And I had heard a lot about him because that was right when ESPN and all of that stuff started. And we started hearing about this young, talented player that was playing in AAA for the Baltimore Orioles and then getting a chance to come up. That was during the strike year was 81. And then, so we heard a lot about that. So Cal came up and I had to face all of those guys, Dempsey and those guys at the bottom of the lineup, Lowenstein, but at the top of the lineup, Eddie Murray. And it was a pretty
Humphrey and Singleton. And Singleton.
Kenny Singleton. People asked me about, hey, did you ever throw a changeup? And the first changeup, I never had to throw a changeup until I got to the big leagues. First changeup I ever threw was in Toronto at Exhibition Stadium against Kenny Singleton. And he hit it so far that I never ever throw a changeup again. So when they asked me about my changeup, that's why it was non-existent. It was because Kenny Singleton. Oh my God.
Anyway, I interrupted you. The date was May 30th, 1982. And now let's fast forward. You win the game 6-0. You pitch 6 shutout innings, give up 1 hit. You best Jim Palmer. And you've got the game ball on your mantle wherever you were living, probably in Southern California. But fast forward to spring training 1995 and a conversation you had with Paul Molitor.
So I'm out in the outfield. Paul's playing for the Blue Jays, and I was back in Dunedin, and it was very fun because I was with the Pirates at the time. So I had gone all my whole career, and this was the end of my career. I was going back to the Pirates for one last year in spring training. I got a chance to know Paulie doing I was part of the licensing committee and part of the Major League Baseball Players Association union, and Paul was one of the directors there. Paul was very prominent with the Players Association. Probably people really don't know a lot about that, but Paul was very instrumental in being able to get a lot of things that we've been able to get. And so he and I are talking out there, and he goes, "You know what I just heard? I heard that your first win was the day that Cal Ripken started his streak." And I mean, I had gone 14 years not knowing that was the actual significance of that day. I just knew that was my first win against Jim Palmer. I pitched against Cal Ripken. He was in the lineup, and I only had to pitch against those guys for 3 years while I was in the American League, and then the rest was in the National League. So Paul said, I hope you realize that was a significant thing. And he asked me too, he goes, "Did you keep anything from that game?" I said, "Of course I've got the ball. The ball, that's one of the most significant things that you have as a pitcher player. That's something like that.
Your first major league win.
First major league win. It was prominently on we moved around so much, but it was always something very delicate with the moving guys. So I hadn't lost it. I had it. So fast forward even further into that year after spring training, talking to Paulie, I went during the season, I was on the disabled list 3 different times. I ended up having the surgery that ended my career in mid-August of that year. So I had to be on the disabled list with my career basically, the horizon was already there. And when I was at home, we just had a baby. So I was walking him around the block, and right when I got back home, no cell phones, of course, get back home, and my wife says, "Hey, the Baltimore Orioles just called, and they asked if you would be willing to give up your baseball to Cal Ripken Jr." And I was like, "Oh my God, what was that?" So she goes, "I didn't say anything. I just let them know that we'll call him back."
Right.
So let's get on the phone, and we talked to the director of the public relations there, and she had asked if I had the ball. "Yes, I do. Would you be willing to fly back to Baltimore to present it to Cal on the field?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Of course I would." Just to be part, Ross, we know it, just to be part of the game sometime. I remember the first time I went to Three River Stadium for me was because I was a huge Steeler fan, but you always remember those significant things that happen in certain stadiums, So when I got that opportunity to go back and be part of history, just my little part, I was all over it. And they ended up flying Kathy and I back there. The girl apologized. She said, "I'm sorry, you'll have a limo the whole weekend. You have to share it with somebody." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I'd walk there, drive somebody there. I don't care."
Yeah.
Of course, who it was. It was Ernie Banks. So we got to share
Oh God.
rides back and forth to the stadium for 2 days with Ernie Banks, which was hilarious.
That's great.
It was so cool.
One of the cool parts of that story, Jim, is that Cal was really blown away. To this day, he says it's really the only memento he has kept from that game.
I was giving it to him. He goes, "Goddard, you can't give this. This is your first win." I mean, we all know how that's like the Hope Diamond or something huge. And he really was kind of like pushing it back and just said, "Hey, Cal, I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you for inviting me," and then walked off. So it was really cool to be able to be part of that. I love baseball history, and just to be there was very cool.
Thank you for sharing that story. Before I turn you over to Ross for a couple questions, so your name came back into my periphery this year. We had Dave Tremblay on our show like in June or something. He was just getting ready to manage the State College Spikes this past summer in the Major League Draft League. How was it working with Dave Tremblay?
What an incredible guy. I mean, from the baseball standpoint, I talk to him all the time. I've got a phone call just getting ready to talk to him about getting prepared for my new job down in the Dominican. We'll talk about that later, but Dave became an instant friend. And the one little story I've got to tell you about Dave is that I have a 29-year-old autistic son, very high functioning, and Danny came to live with us during the summer while we were in State College. So at the very beginning of the season, I asked Dave, "Hey, Dave, would you mind if Danny was the bat boy for one game?" And he was like, "Are you kidding me? The one thing that baseball kills us on is that we're not with our family, and I wish I was able to spend more time with my family, and if they absolutely will do that." So Danny did it the first game, and Dave looked at him and they said, "Do you want to do this every game?" And he said, "Yes." And so Danny traveled with us. He had a locker right next to mine. The kids just loved him. I mean, Danny's just a love anyway, and it was something that only could have happened if it wasn't for Dave saying yes. So love Dave Tremblay.
Yeah, that's a great story and speaks to the kind of person he is. Ross, I know you got tons of questions for Jim.
Yeah, Jim. Before I get to the coaching end of it, I know you started out as a starting pitcher. You went on the bullpen after I think 4 or 5 years. You got 90 plus saves out of the bullpen. What out of the two starting relief, what did you like the best of those two?
And okay, so as a coach now, there's a certain person for a starting pitcher, right? Like you, an upstanding citizen that is organized and could have a great routine and be able to deal with the ups and downs, have that ice water in his veins. And that was the complete opposite of what I was. So I got my opportunity of being a starter with the Blue Jays and with the Giants. But when I got an opportunity, the Blue Jays did it at the end of my 3 years there. And then the Giants, after an injury, I ended up going to become in the bullpen. But I love the bullpen so much more. It's so much more suited for me. I'm a very, high energy, emotional, riding the roller coaster up and down. And it just served me so much better being a reliever than a starter.
Yeah. I read some things about you as far as your coaching. I know you're in the big leagues for several years as a bullpen coach and what have you. Then you're in the Major League Draft League last year. Now, as a starting pitcher, as a bullpen guy, I was only a starting pitcher and I relieved very little. But I had an idea from the people I was around. How did the two starting and relieving, how did that help your coaching as in the big leagues and in the minor leagues, basically?
So much. It really helped me out to be able to, as a bullpen coach, when I was with the Phillies, the one thing that I prided myself on was being able to kind of being that stable balancing point for each guy, because everybody has their own emotions that go up and down with whatever the game it is. And again, the one thing that I loved about being in the bullpen was that if I had a bad game, I didn't have to wait 5 days to get back out there on the mound. I could redeem myself the next day, which is what I liked. And I like those little short spurts instead of the longer thing. Getting 27 outs was like, climbing Kilimanjaro. And I would rather just sprint, go as far as I can, call it a day, and that's enough. So that, being able to have both of those really helped me in my coaching career. With the Phillies, the big thing with that was just kind of not riding the wave with each of the guys. I knew how they did the night before. When I saw them the next day, I knew what was spinning in their head, and I was able to distract them a little bit or get them back on turning the page and getting ready to move on for the next game. And then as far as the starting is concerned, and being in the Major League Draft League, it really gave me an opportunity being able to really help those guys understand how their routine, and you know this better than anybody, your routine as a starting pitcher is your saving grace. That's the one thing that will keep you from emotionally going up and down. It'll keep your body healthy and safe throughout the year. And I think that by having both of those, I was able to teach two different perspectives in two different ways.
You know, with the, and I read some things about you having to make adjustments from coaching 15 years ago to now, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever, how long, but now the adjustments with analytics, how did all this new information that you got, how did you have to adjust, and how was it working, especially in the Major League Draft League, with those young kids who come from different schools, organizations, or whatever? How is it like working with them? What did you have to, what could you use? What couldn't you use? Or were you able to do the old school stuff? Can you blend them? I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
That's a great question, because you can blend them. The one thing that I saw, my old school way of doing things, like you and I know, just what we see with our eyes and we hear with our ears, those are the things that apply during the game. So when a guy comes off, has had a bad inning, we're getting the pitcher and catcher together, I'm able to talk from that perspective. Did you see the way the hitter reacted? Did you see what they're doing? Do you see how you're controlling the running game? Things like that. But then from the teaching standpoint, when they were having their bullpens, these guys are all growing up with the TrackMan, Rapsodo, all of the different analytic tools that are out there to be able to give them these directions on how good their pitches are. And that's really what it is. It really profiles the pitch that I can't see with my eyes. It's something that I can see with my eyes, but I can't, there's good tilt with that slider or whatever it might be. Now I've got numbers that go with that. But the big thing is, for these young kids, they're growing up with that now. They're growing up with that at their high school level, their club level. These guys are getting radar when we never had radar around us until we started playing pro ball, And then these guys, they know exactly what their velo is. They know exactly what their, the tilt, the horizontal movement, the vertical movement, all of that stuff. The only thing that I think gets lost with that is command, because I got a chance to see the state college team this year. Great players. They had some big profile players that were getting ready for the draft. I saw them with the Rapsodo that was in the batting in the bullpen with them, and these guys were all trying to throw as hard as they could. So all the guys on the team were all around looking to see if the guy was going to break 95 or whatever it was. Not one of those pitches was even close to the plate. He was throwing pitches over the catcher's head that the catcher couldn't even catch. And yet everybody from his perspective were having such a great time. My God, what a great bullpen that was. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this doesn't play. It might get you to get drafted, but still then you're going to have to clean up this mess, and the mess is that you've got to be able to understand how to, that up and down, back and forth and side to side. That's the way you pitch. And command is what gets you to the big leagues and keeps you there.
Jim, let me ask you a question. It's interesting. It just popped into my head. When you were growing up, or when Ross was growing up, kids, I think, really wanted to be starting pitchers.
Yes.
Are kids that are growing up today, is there more romance for them to be a relief pitcher, or do they still think of, I'm a starting pitcher until I fail at being a starting pitcher?
Great question. And I think that the determination of the two, everybody wants to be a starting pitcher until you get to college. And once you get to college now, you can be profiled as a relief pitcher, even a middle guy, and still put yourself in a position to develop to get into pro baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Where before it used to be, wow, you need to be a starting pitcher because they need to see you throwing, and need to have a big body of work. That does look that way for high school, but once you get to college, no. And then once you get in the minor leagues, that's the other thing too, Stan. In the minor leagues, and I've been in so many of these rooms where we're talking player development, and it used to always be, I'd be with Marcel Latchman, and he was like, hey, if we want this kid, Cam Bedrosian, if we want Cam to get to the big leagues, we need to have Cam as a starting pitcher. But Cam was having a tough time getting through 3, 4, 5 innings, and he was much better as a relief pitcher. But we needed to give him a bigger body of work. We needed to give him an opportunity of throwing more pitches, being able to have that bullpen in between his starts, which is something you can't have as a bullpen guy. And so that is something that they still try to do, but still you can profile now as a especially back at the end guy, and you will start that way in the minor leagues to get to the big leagues.
It's interesting. You used the phrase that it fit you better because some players you said are organized and they're not as emotional. I find that I think Major League Baseball teams would do a real service to do better psychological profiling in thinking of roles for pitchers. Because to me, I think there's a lot of pitchers, I wonder if you agree, that they don't know how to get better between the day they got bombed and the next time they start. That it would benefit them to be pitching more frequently and maybe less compressed pressure situations. Your thoughts on that?
For sure, I agree with that. And I think the one thing that's happened now is that we are rushing people to the big leagues so much faster than, especially when Ross was coming up. I mean, that goes to show you how good Ross is. I'm not just saying this, Ross, but you were in the big leagues when you were 21, and that was back at a time that, you had to be unbelievably good to be able to do that because there was, minimal movement. So now you've got staffs that are not moving at all. I remember here with the Dodgers. I mean, if you wanted to break into that middle infield, there was no way that was going to happen, right?
Right.
Be the best player. There's no way you're moving any of those guys out of there. And I think now that moving guys up, I think contracts have really changed things too. The amount of money that guys are making, and I'm so grateful. Ross and I fought so hard for that with the Players Association for free agency, and you were right in the middle of it. Talk about somebody that really, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that sometime too. But the things that were put together by your generation so that my generation could really benefit, and then now the next generation, and the money that they're making is incredible. The one thing that happens now, because of the amount of money that guys are making, you eliminate those great bench players. You eliminate the fourth and fifth starter. You eliminate the reliable bullpen guys that you can totally count on in August when you don't want to kill Ross Grimsley. Just pitched a no-hitter the weekend before the day, his last start, and then you might be struggling a little bit. It's like, you know what? Ross is done today. We got somebody else that can go in right now. Because of that, you're getting guys with less experience being put into big roles that they haven't necessarily earned yet.
Great answer. Ross?
Yeah, Jim, I was reading some of the basic ideas that you believe in as a pitcher, as a coach. My question is, I'm going to mention some of them, which, believe me, I believe in these 100%. But how did the pitchers? Did they understand this? How do they, pound the strike zone? That's pretty simple right there. Understanding the importance of first pitch strikes. I don't think a lot of guys understand why or even how to do it. Did you find that situation along with 1-1? You don't hear that a lot. The 1-1 pitch is your only chance to get ahead in the count. Again.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand how important it is to be ahead in the count, first of all, and minimize your pitches. Those are four basic things right there. What did you see with the pitchers you worked with, and even in the big leagues? I'm sure you saw some guys that didn't. What are your thoughts on that?
I am so right with you. That's everything. And again, I think that we're back to this velocity is everything generation. And with that, you're going to, look at Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan was, God blessed him to have the arm that he had to be able to pitch 28 years in the big leagues, whatever it was. I mean, nobody could pitch like that. I mean, think about the 300 or 200 pitch games that he was pitching early in his career and, pitching 200-300 innings. That doesn't happen anymore. He was able to develop his arm to be able to do it. Nowadays, with people not understanding that attacking the strike zone is number one, not only to be a successful pitcher, but more importantly, to be a healthy pitcher. If you're out there and you're throwing, God, that puts more stress on your arm by having so much overthrown balls out of the strike zone. So the one thing that I really tried to help them understand, hey, you understand that it's 12 to 15 pitches or less per inning. That's what we want, because two things. As a reliever, no matter how many innings you pitch, that makes you available for the next day. And what a benefit that is for your manager to be able to know of the 8 guys that are down there. And it used to only be 6 guys down in the bullpen when you were playing. You didn't have the luxury of having those extra arms, so you need guys to be able to pitch. And the other thing for a starting pitcher, if you go 12 to 15 pitches, that means that you have an opportunity where your money is going to be made is in the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning. It used to be the money was made in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, but now, a quality start is 5 innings.
Right.
And then you're going to go ahead and throw that on the bullpen. And that's why I think you're seeing so many more injuries and the constant roller coaster or merry-go-round from AAA to the big leagues. And you're seeing so much of that movement. It's because of that. I think that, again, it's not being prepared to be in the big leagues. And by not being prepared in the big leagues or trying to overthrow, you're throwing too much. You're not going to be as effective. Look at those guys that you played with right at the beginning of your career. Johnny Bench, how about Pete Rose? Pete Rose having 6 pitches to see in 1 at bat, and you think he's going to hit the ball hard? You got to be kidding me. You got to force that guy to get out right away. That's the only way you're going to be successful.
Yeah. The other thing, and you touched on it, Jim. Injuries, pitchers, there's more injuries now than ever before by pitchers. And one of the things, overthrowing it, I've seen that, over my, almost 5 decades of being in the game, that guys overthrowing, trying to throw harder than they're capable of throwing, leads to injuries. And no one really talks about it or says a lot about it. And I'm just wondering it's so obvious, but to a lot of people in the game now, it's not. They don't know.
They don't know. And again, it's these kids are being brought up with that because their parents know that for them to get looked at, even at a small Division I school, Division III school, you have to throw 85 or above. To be able to go to a D1 school, you need to be 90 or above. And so everybody's buying into all of the different velocity programs that are out there, whether it's weighted balls or whatever it might be, to be able to go out and throw. And the other thing too, you're seeing so many injuries because of that. But the other thing you're seeing injuries from is that these guys are playing baseball year round when they're 12 years old. I mean, come on, you got to play football, baseball, wrestling, play lacrosse, whatever. I mean, you're going to get more skill development from playing another sport than you are just focusing on the one sport that's going to get you to college.
Hey, Jim, before we touch on what you're going to be doing this year, because it's pretty exciting, I did want to ask you, I noticed that you mentioned it, that you were bullpen coach for the Phillies for 3 years. So were you there? Was Girardi the manager?
My last year there, yes. I was there.
Okay.
With Gabe Kapler. Gabe Kapler hired me.
That's right. Kapler hired you. Okay.
2 great years with him, and then 1 really good year with Joe. And then, like always, what happens in the game, after your first year, you get a chance to bring your own people on.
Sure.
And not that I'm one of his guys, but he brought in Caleb Coughlin, and then I was let go, which was fun.
My question was really about, did you work 1 year with Rob Thompson? And does it surprise you he was such a success following Joe Girardi?
Rob Thompson's one of my best friends in the whole world, and I love the kid. He's younger than me, so I can say kid. But he was, and Ross, we know this. And you know what? Perfect example. Dave Tremblay. He's the Dave Tremblay of the Phillies. He's a guy who's given his life to the game.
We don't mind dogs in the picture, so don't worry about that.
I love Pippi, my little baby. But it's just like Dave Tremblay. Dave Tremblay gave his life to the game, and then just because of a lot of little circumstances, he got an opportunity of managing when in a lot of bigger cities, bigger markets, they're going to go with a named person where you're going to give him the opportunity, and he did great. And so that's exactly what happened with Rob Thompson. Rob Thompson is a level-headed, caring, really hard-nosed Canadian hockey guy. That's what I love to say, because he is hard-nosed. This guy will scrap. His best saying was, keep your stick on the ice. And I can't remember what it was, but that's the way his mentality is. And the kids love him. I mean, he's the first guy at the ballpark every day. He's the last guy to leave. He knows that everybody there knows how invested he is. So when Rob got that opportunity, I'm so grateful that it happened so early in the season instead of being the last 6 weeks of the season. It probably would have kept on, with him winning and winning, that he still would have been able to get the contract he got. But I think by being there that long, it just goes to show you the connection he has with the players and what a good manager he is.
I saw Dombrowski interviewed, and I've known Dave a long time, but he said, and he does, because he used to always come to Baltimore with the Tigers. He was always there sitting with Al Kaline during games. And he goes, I travel more than most general managers. And he said, I didn't like the feel of what I saw in that locker room, and he was careful not to criticize Girardi, but he said, I needed to see something change there. And that was the way he did it. And I thought it was a brilliant move, because Girardi, with his cachet, you would think would have gotten more of a benefit of the doubt. But it was interesting.
It was perfect timing, perfect
everything. Timing was right.
You're going to see, look at the moves that the Phillies are making every day. They're, oh my God, these guys are, Dombrowski's, who he is for a reason. Look at the way he rebuilds people, and they're going to have a team that I think is going to be, a formidable team for the next few years.
Let's talk about what you're going to be doing this year. You told us at the beginning, before we went on the air, you said, hey, I'm just starting a new job with the Oakland A's. And I was thinking, oh, he's going to be in Oakland, or what? You're going to be in the Dominican Republic. How did this come about? Who did you talk to?
I'm so excited about this. When my contract ended with the Phillies, getting an opportunity of getting back into a minor league affiliate was really difficult, because the trend has been the younger pitching coaches, not so much younger, the skilled, analytic, knowledgeable, those guys are rightfully so getting the opportunities that I would have had 10 years ago. And those opportunities weren't there for that 2 years ago. It was right after the 20 season. So I got a hold of Scott Service and Jerry DiPoto, good friends of mine from the Angels. And they were the ones that gave me my first pitching coordinating job. And I just said, what do you guys think? And Jerry, the trend is just what I told you. The trend is younger, more analytic. This is the way it is. Goddard, you're going to have to reinvent yourself. What would be different? He said, think about it for a couple of days and get back with me. So the next call was, I talked to Scotty for a while, and Scott mentioned that he had a young bench coach, or a young player that got hurt when he was with the Rangers, Carson Vitale. He's about 30 years old now. He's on the bench with Scott Service and the Mariners. Super bright guy, went to Creighton. And 1 year they did not have a managing job for him with the Angels. And they had him at 25 years old go down to the Dominican. He goes, Scott said, hey, I'll take care of you. You give me 2 years as the manager down there, and we'll go from there. And Carson went down there, just bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and went down there, made a significant impact on that whole thing. And as a coordinator, I went down there all the time. So, and I love Carson. Carson was a hitting coach on one of the teams that I was on before I got the coordinating job. And so I just saw what he was able to do. And it was like, you know what? I'm in a different part of my career. I'm at the twilight of my career coaching.
Right.
We're almost at the retirement age. All of our kids are out of the house. And Kathy and I had always thought, wouldn't it be fun? Because Kathy came on with me at least once a year when I was a coordinator down in the Dominican. And she goes, wouldn't it be fun to coach down here 1 year? So that's what we talked about. I put a little proposal together, sent it to Jerry. And Jerry goes, this is exactly what I was talking about. We don't have a position for you right now, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. So I sent it to all the teams. It took 2 years. So 2 full seasons went by, nothing happened. I got an opportunity to coach with Dave Tremblay, and I was over in Williamsport the year before that. And then out of nowhere, Craig Lefferts calls me up. Craig and I played together with the Giants. He's one of the pitching coordinators with the A's. Hey, Goddard, Ed Sprague just saw your resume. We have an opening down in the Dominican. Is that something you'd really want to do? And I was like, absolutely. So that was Saturday. By Monday, I was on the phone with Ed Sprague and I was offered the job.
That's really exciting.
I'm going down in a couple weeks right now to have our first 2 weeks working with some of the kids that are coming up to the States. And then my wife and I will go to spring training for a week. And then the beginning of March, we're down there for 6 months. We have a place to live, and we've got family. You guys are all welcome. Ross, if you guys want to come down, we've got room for it. But it's going to be great. And you know what's so awesome is it's going to be instructional leagues for 6 months. It's going to be all those things that you can't do at a higher level in the minor leagues.
Right.
You can do down there in Dominican. You know, there might be a cow coming across the outfield grass or not show up. I mean, you never know, right? But the one thing that you can't do is you can say, hey, you know what? We're starting the inning first and third. I mean, during our season, we can't do that, but all these little inter-squad games that we play, okay, guys, it's first and third. This is your inning right now. Don't let them score, and make these guys experience the really hard part of the game in real time, and not have them gain some experience they could never get if they were doing it in the minor league city.
Do you know who your staff will be?
I have 2 young guys. Jay Buhner's son, Gunner, is going to be our hitting coach, and this is his first year. Doesn't speak Spanish.
Right.
We have a young guy, Cooper Colby, who went to Idaho State, I believe it was, and he coached a little bit for the A's last year. He's going to be the manager. And then we have a great staff of our Dominican coaches and training staff that were there last year. And
Great.
We're going at it. We're really excited. So Stan, I hope we get a chance to talk about this next year. And
We definitely will. We definitely will. Ross, you got anything left for?
Yeah, Jim, what Ed Sprague, is that the pitcher?
the third baseman that was
The third, it's his son. It's a
Yeah.
junior. Okay, yeah.
Hey,
Is his
I want to talk with you, and we've got to exchange phone numbers, but I want to hear about you growing up with your dad being a ball player too.
Oh
Wow.
gosh, yes.
That must have been incredible. Wow.
It was, it was, he retired in 62. I signed in 69. And, that's the only time up until, 2014, my last year of coaching. And then I did the pregame show for the Orioles that I wasn't around baseball. That's 6 years. But yeah, it was a dream come true. And like you mentioned earlier, I was taught things that other people didn't know because I was always around it.
Yeah.
So it gave you a little head start on other guys, and that was really a big thing.
Yeah, really.
Very fortunate. Very fortunate. And the coaches I had in growing up, my dad playing basketball and stuff. The coaches were and it kind of trained you in Memphis, Tennessee. Playing in sports with basketball was a big thing, and was able to play with a lot of people. So you got kind of used to the big games and the big crowds and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when going to the Reds, that was a big thing around those guys. I collected their baseball cards, for God's sakes. And now I'm playing. I mean, I got to play against my favorite player growing up, Willie McCovey.
Wow.
I got Willie Mays, Hank Aaron. I mean, it was
Did
a dream come
Did
true.
McCovey take you deep?
No, he hit a $120 something off of me, but a lot of the other guys did.
I like that. Hey,
Aaron, but I mean, what a dream! What a dream come true.
Hey, Jim and Ross, I will email both of you and give each of you your information. Okay.
Great, thank you so much.
I've got one last question for you, Jim, because we were talking about the Phillies, and you noticed the improvements they made. Dombrowski's not kidding around. At his age, he's not funning anymore. He picks up Kimbrel, and now he gets his trade. I don't understand what the Tigers got in that deal, but They get Soto. Together, they now have a bullpen that extends. And that's what I watched in the postseason. The teams that win now have these bullpens that never end. They just always have one or two more arms in the other opposition. Is that the way you see it?
I think definitely the trend right now. You look at Zach Wheeler coming out of the game that they ended up losing, but that's the trend of the game. Rob Thompson is following his gut for him to bring a guy out in the fifth inning of a World Series game. That's the way that you're going to be seeing more regular season games being played.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's going to happen, I worry about the injury And because now all of a sudden you also have everybody's got to pitch to 3 people too. There's a lot of that exposes by overusing bullpens. So I worry about those guys because not everybody's like Scott Shields or Mike Marshall that could pitch all the time. You know, some guys, you know, are max guys, and your stuff diminishes over too much use in a week. And I think but I think you're exactly right. You're going to be seeing a lot more of that. The bullpens are going to be the reasons why people win World Series and championships.
He's Jim Gott. He's former big league pitcher and a close personal friend of Cal Ripken's in a way, in a very special way. Jim, we appreciate you spending some time with us, and look for that email. I'll get it out tonight to you and Ross. So if you want to talk, you can give each other a call. All right.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Great
and we thanks, Jim. We really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Jim. Thank you so much, buddy.
Great talking to you guys. Thanks, Ross.
And
Take
we
care,
thank
man.
our friends over at Costas Inn for paying the bills on these shows. They're really a great, terrific place. All right. For Jim Gott, Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan Charles, and we'll see you. I'll be on Thursday night with Gary Stein, and we'll be talking Maryland recruiting with Ahmed Kiefer of the Black and Gold Report. All right. That's it for now. Bye.